This young man, Narendranath, became the monk Vivekananda. He used to go around questioning people in Calcutta. Have you seen God? And he went to his future master, Sri Ramakrishna. That's where he received the first direct reply. Have you seen God, sir? And the reply came from Ramakrishna, yes, I have. Just as I see you, even more clearly. And you can see God too. And in this country, Vivekananda would come and proclaim, in no uncertain terms, that if somebody comes and says, I have experienced God, I have seen God, but you cannot and you must believe me, do not believe such a person. If somebody comes and says, I have experienced God, God can be experienced and you too can do it, then you can believe such a person. You can actually accept and you can walk the path. So religion is realization. This is another aspect of Vedanta. The third aspect, which again follows from these Vedantic ideas, is the most ancient of the Vedas, Rig Veda, spoke of this. Truth is one, but the wise express it differently. Ekam sat vipra bahuda vadanti. This is from the Rig Veda. Now the importance of this cannot be overemphasized. When we are speaking about practicing peace in the wake of 9/11, this idea alone can be credited with maintaining peace and harmony in India through the millennia. Different religions in India have existed for thousands of years and in harmony, sometimes in conflict, but they have coexisted with each other. They have learned to coexist with each other because of the central Vedantic idea accepted by the masses in India. Truth is one, it can be expressed in different ways. Sri Ramakrishna used to give a very homely example. In the village pond, he said, he saw different people of different communities coming to get water, and he noticed that the Bengalis, they call water jal in Bengali. And the Muslims would come and they would call it in Hindi, pani. And he said the Englishman comes, remember at that time the British were ruling India, and the Englishman comes to the same pond and he calls it water. Water, jal or pani, Sri Ramakrishna noticed, they're all referring to the same thing, the same reality. So, the same reality is referred to in different ways. Why different? Because that reality is infinite. You can express it in different ways. Because that reality, Vedanta says, avam manasa gochara, which literally means beyond thought and beyond speech. When you try to express something that is beyond language, in language, we are bound to use different kinds of language. None of the expressions actually exhaust the infinite nature of that reality. Sri Ramakrishna is, you give another beautiful little example. A little ant found a mountain of sugar and went there and took one grain and ate it, and then sort of tugged one grain out to take back to its ant hill, and while tugging it along, looked back at the mountain of sugar and said, I'll come back tomorrow and take the whole of it. Now, that is as ridiculous as trying to say that I or my religion or my theology or my understanding of religion has encompassed the whole of God. It's impossible. It's like that little ant saying, I'll take the entire mountain of sugar along with me. He may want to, he's greedy, but it's impossible. He cannot do it. So the infinite reality, when it's expressed in different religions, in different cultures, in different philosophies, the expressions are different. But there is one common thread running through all of that. They're all talking about the same reality. I'm proud to say that I've come from the Vedanta Society of Southern California, where about 50 years ago, there a writer and philosopher, Aldous Huxley, novelist and philosopher also, Aldous Huxley, he worked there and started this trend of perennialist thought in religion. He wrote this beautiful collected this beautiful collection of spiritual writings called the Perennial Philosophy. I highly recommend that book. And it was written in the Vedanta Society of Southern California about 40-50 years ago, where the central thesis was with this very thing, that if you look at the great spiritual traditions of humanity, we find that there is a common thread of, there's a spiritual reality they are speaking about in different language. Practices are different, the cosmology is different, the mythologies are different, but one cannot deny they're talking about some infinite transcendent reality. And they all talk about experience, spiritual experience. So Sri Ramakrishna came to this conclusion. In Bengali, his homely Bengali, he would say, Jato mat tato pat. As many states, so many paths to that reality. So the different religions are different paths to that reality. Sometimes we are accused of saying that you are teaching that all religions are the same. Neither Sri Ramakrishna, nor Vivekananda, nor Vedanta has ever said that all religions are the same. The religions are of course different, and it's great that they are different. They enrich human civilization because they are different. They are express different parts of the economy of God. So, all religions, they are different and they are unique, but they are all different paths to God. In fact, from the Vedantic perspective, this is what gives validity to religion. A religion is valid not because of a book, not because such and such person has said it. A religion is valid because it is a valid path to God realization, to spiritual enlightenment. Does it take you to God? Does it make you a spiritual person? Does it solve the spiritual problems of life? Yes, it's a valid religion. So that is another idea. Ekam sat vipra bahudha vadanti. The truth is one, the wise express it differently. So that all the religions become different paths to one reality. I have seen this in India. In our main monastery near Calcutta, I have seen on a special religious occasion, it's on the bank of the Ganges river, which is very holy to Hindus. So scores of Hindu women folk coming for a special festival near the bank of the river. It's called the Chhat festival. It's a kind of worship of sun as God. And when they come to the monastery to go to the bank of the river, they pass by a mosque. So an Islamic mosque. And when they pass by, I've seen, and it's a common thing in India, you'll see all those women who are not very literate, not very educated, they pass by and they bow down like this and go. Now, they're all Hindus. But the idea is, this is also another form of worship. This is also another form of religion. They are worshipping the same God in a different way. And this is so common. This understanding is so deeply rooted in Hinduism. Maybe many people, ordinary people in the villages, they cannot quote the Sanskrit, but they will tell you in their local language, in the village language, they will tell you, well, it's all one reality. They will tell you that. And it's easy to come by that understanding in India, because you have some people worship Krishna, some people worship Rama, and some people worship Vishnu. And to the outsider it looks like the rankest polytheism. But it is not. If one goes closely and listens closely, when the mantras are chanted during the worship of that particular deity, you will find exactly the same attributes are given to each of these deities. That they are omnipotent and omniscient, and the creator of the universe, and the preserver of the universe, the giver of grace, and also that they come in all different forms. So everybody who worships there, in India, the Hindus, they recognize that though I worship in this form, and he or she worships in that form, all of them are referring to ultimately one reality who's beyond forms. Often in pujas, we just had Ganesh Puja yesterday, there was a beautiful function here which I attended. You will find the mantras which are chanted. At the end there will be an asking for forgiveness. Thou who are in reality beyond form, we worship you with form. Thou who are omnipresent, we have worshipped you in this particular image. So forgive us for our impudence in trying to do this. So, in all these forms, the Hindus are used to this kind of worship. And so, for them to accept another conception of God, so when the Christian comes with his or her conception of God, it's perfectly alright for the Hindu. Many of you may be surprised to know that Jesus Christ is worshipped and revered. In fact, In our monastery in Southern California, on the altar you will find the icon of Jesus Christ. In our main monastery in Calcutta, in India itself, Christmas is celebrated with the same rituals which we worship the Hindu god or goddesses. And that's an important festival in our monastery. So it comes very naturally to a follower of Vedanta. I am reminded of this book written by Robert Wright, The Evolution of God. So he speaks about how the concept of God has evolved over the centuries in the Abrahamic faiths. So he speaks about Christianity, about Judaism, Christianity, especially Christianity and Islam, how the conception of God has evolved. And then in the final chapter, he mentions, just once he mentions Hinduism and Vedanta. He says, what are the prospects for peace between the great Abrahamic traditions? And he says, I know of only one formula which has worked successfully anywhere in the world. And he mentions this. Truth is one, but the wise speak of it differently. And he says, this is a formula which the ancient Hindus discovered thousands of years ago. And it has been absorbed by the civilization in India, and it has prevented rivalry and bloodshed between the different factions of Hinduism and between Hinduism and different religions. The Buddha, who rejected traditional Hinduism, the Vedic Hinduism, the rituals of Hinduism, and struck out on his own path. The Buddha is regarded as an incarnation of Vishnu, as an incarnation of God by the Hindus, and worshipped by all Hindus. We do, I know that, and I know all Hindus accept the Buddha as an incarnation, as a great spiritual personality. So, this is another aspect. The truth is one, but spoken of in different ways. All religions become paths to that one reality, and that reality can be experienced. Not only can it be experienced, it is the goal of our lives. Whatever we are trying to do in life, we are actually trying to attain happiness and overcome suffering. And if you ask, what is the goal of Vedanta? The answer is very surprising. They say the goal of Vedanta is Atyantika Dukkha Nivritti, completely transcending, overcoming suffering, and Paramananda Prapti, attainment of ultimate bliss. So exactly what we have, human life, what we are all struggling to do, whether we are earning money or chasing pleasure or whatever, science or art or religion, basically what we are trying to do is to find peace and joy and happiness, something more stable and deeper and more